We're going back to school today. I'm taking everybody to school. You guys want to know what class we're going to today? Back to the steak basics. That's right, Steak 101. Today I'm going to be showing you guys every single perfect tip you need to make sure your steaks are flawless, like a steakhouse quality steak. And this is how. Today I'm going to take it slow for us. Nice and simple, just cooking a steak. It can be the easiest thing or it can be the most complex thing. And I'm going to be breaking down the process step by step, explaining every single thing that makes a perfect steak perfect, so you guys can do it at home. Now this is a ribeye steak, a bone-in ribeye steak. And what's perfect about this steak is the marbling. It has some good intramuscular fat here, which is what the ribeye is renowned for. Now the ribeye is not the most tender cut, but it is one of the most flavorful, so that's why people love it. So the ribeye, with all of its fat content, it's very forgiving, especially for new cooks. The fat here will protect the meat and that it will keep it moist and juicier longer rather than a lean piece of meat like the filet mignon. The bone in the steak will also keep it nice and moist and juicy. This will protect the meat and help the cooking time take a little bit longer. Everything else here is just a flavor component. We have some fresh rosemary and some fresh thyme, some fresh garlic, and those are going to be excellent for flavoring our steak. And then just a little bit of butter, a neutral oil like an avocado or a canola oil, and some salt and pepper. It's really that simple, and I'm sure most of you have this stuff lying around your house right now. So when we sear a steak, it's crucial that we get a nice hard sear. You want to develop a crust, and that's going to be the Maillard reaction. And the Maillard reaction explains that when we caramelize proteins, they become tastier. So since we want a nice brown crust on our steak, and since moisture is the enemy of browning, what we have to do is get rid of the excess moisture. So this is just a paper towel, and you need to press it on nice and firm to suck out all that extra surface moisture. And this is a key component to getting a good sear. Once we've patted the first side, flip it over and go ahead and remove all excess moisture from the other side, so your steak is nice and dry. Now it's time to season, and we are just going to keep it as basic as possible. At the very least, you need salt and pepper. But if you want to take it a step further, you can add onion powder, garlic powder, paprika, cayenne pepper, lemon pepper, whatever you like. But if you're just learning out, you definitely need these two. So this is some kosher salt. And for a thick steak, this one's about 1 inch thick, you need enough salt to coat the entire surface like this. That is not too salty. A lot of salt will come off in the cooking process too. So flip it over, salt the other side. You guys see I have little bits of salt over the entire steak. And now we do the same thing with pepper too. You don't need nearly as much pepper as you do salt. The black pepper is much stronger. And now that our steak is patted down and nicely seasoned, it's time to begin cooking. So just before we start cooking our steak, we have to check our mise en place. And mise en place means make sure everything is in the place. So as soon as we're ready for it, we can just go. We have a sheet tray here lined with some foil and a wire rack above it. That's crucial for letting the steak rest. We have our herbs, our thyme and our rosemary ready to go. We have our butter ready to go, and a few cloves of garlic already peeled. These are the things you need ready before you start your cooking process. And now that we have it all here assembled, it's time to begin cooking. So the reason we start with a neutral oil like a canola or an avocado oil is because the smoke point is higher, which means this can handle more heat before your house starts to fill with smoke. It's the reason why we don't use an olive oil or a butter to start. In order to sear a steak, you need a very high heat, and a neutral oil can handle a heat higher than butter or olive oil. So you start off with getting your pan very hot, and then we add our neutral oil, which should be smoking. That's what you want. And now we can go ahead and cool the pan down by adding the steak to it. I go ahead around the pan and I push my steak down firmly so I make sure every single part of it is in contact with the heat for that good sear we need. And once your steak has a beautiful deep brown crust like this, it's time to flip it. Look at how perfect that sear is. Deep brown golden crust. Now as soon as you flip it over, reduce the heat. And now that our heat is reduced, it's time to add our butter. That's gonna add an excellent flavor to the steak. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna make a compound butter. So into the butter goes the garlic. It's best if you leave it whole. If you cut the garlic into small pieces, it will burn faster. So we have the butter, the garlic, the thyme, and the rosemary, all going into the pan. Now I'm just gonna mix these herbs around with the butter and the garlic. Make sure this all gets flavored together. Right here we have our deliciously flavored butter. This has the flavor of the herbs, the garlic, the steak, and what you do is you baste it. You tilt the pan down so the butter runs to you. You take a spoonful of that delicious flavored butter and you just keep throwing it over the top. This is called basting, and this is how you achieve an excellent steak. So here's how we tell when our steak is done. The texture of your palm right here is what a raw steak feels like, soft and squishy. And every time you grab the next finger over in the line, it moves up one doneness level. So if this is raw, this is gonna be the texture of rare. If you like your steak rare, touch these two fingers, feel your palm, and then feel the steak. And that's what you're feeling for. So this is rare, this is medium rare, this is medium, this is medium well, or well done. Every time you move your finger over, the muscles tense up. So this is very hard for a well done steak compared to this rare steak, which is very soft right here. I like my steak medium rare, so I'm gonna touch my fingers, I'm gonna feel what this feels like, and I'm trying to feel that same amount of firmness here on the beef. This feels like a medium rare to me, so I'm gonna reserve it on my wire rack, and you can go ahead and put all those herbs and garlic and all that good butter right on top. What's absolutely crucial in the steak cooking process is letting it rest. Right now it's hot, all of the juices are flowing, so if I were to cut into this, all of the juice would run out. That's how you lose your juicy steak. So you give it about 5 to 10 minutes to rest, and that's also crucial because we have to account for something called carryover cooking, which means the steak retains heat inside of it. So even when we pull it out of the pan, it keeps cooking for a little bit longer. So if you like your steaks medium rare, you should pull it off just before medium rare. If you like your steaks well done, you should pull your steak off at medium well, because it's gonna continue to rise in temperature. If you're not so comfortable with guessing a temperature of a steak based upon feel, you're welcome to use a thermometer too, but you also risk when you poke the steak that some of the juices will come out, of course. But if you like your steak rare, you're looking for an internal temperature of 120 degrees. If you like your steak medium rare, 130 degrees. Medium, 140. Just every next step up is 10 more degrees. Our steak has been resting for about 10 minutes. We'll go ahead and take the herbs and the garlic off. And now it's time to slice. And the reason why we don't put the butter, the herbs, and the garlic in early is to avoid for them burning, because these cannot handle the temperature that a steak needs to sear. All right, we start off just by taking the ribeye off the bone. So find where it starts, slice down along the bone, and take it out just like that. And now what's left here is our perfectly cooked, perfectly tender, perfectly juicy steak. Let's go ahead and get a cross-section cut of it and see what it looks like. That looks like a perfect medium rare to me. So we'll just start at the top. This is the rib cap here. Slice your steak all the way down. If I take the pieces and turn them all sideways, it can really show off this absolute perfect cook of a beautiful steak. So this is our ribeye. And the last thing left to do, after you slice a steak, you should always go ahead and season it again with just a little bit of salt, because a lot of the salt you season with comes off in the cooking process and in the slicing process. So this is what we call a finishing salt. It's a larger flake. The finishing salt is made for just that, for finishing. You don't cook with this, you just sprinkle it on foods as they're finished. So we hit it with a little bit of our flaky smoked sea salt, and that is absolute perfection right there. What that does is it adds just a ever so slight crunch. It adds a wonderful smoky undertone, and you still get that umami flavor of the smoked sea salt coming through. It's excellent. And now there's nothing left to do except for try a piece. Gosh, does that look and smell amazing. Oh my goodness. You really get such a flavor of the garlic and the thyme and the rosemary. Even though they're not on here, it comes through very heavily. Cooked perfectly, seasoned perfectly. All you have to do is take these few precautions. Use the right oil, use the right seasonings, use a proper amount of salt, cook it well. And it's so simple that it's amazing how few ingredients can really make a dish taste like a professional level when you do things properly. Thanks for coming back week after week to support Chef Sawyer. I'm so appreciative of every single one of you guys. I hope you take these tips. I hope you make the best steak you've ever made in your entire life. And I hope you come back again next week, so I'll see you then. Thanks for coming, everybody. Mwah. Ciao.